Hey Robotomina, scan your figure database and let me know how many women were released in the WWF Hasbro line in the 90s.
Beep beep boop. A total of 0 women's figures were released by WWF Hasbro in the 1990s.
Exactly! And that's why today's Bull Nakano figure by Chella Toys is so groundbreaking for women's wrestling. I know this technically isn't a Hasbro figure, but it's definitely made in the Hasbro form, and the first female to get that treatment.
Hey, what are you goober heads up to?
Oh, look who decided to stop by, Robotomina. It's Judas herself, co-mayor Alexa. Hey, thanks for not helping Robotomina and I defeat Demon Trish. No big deal. But you know what? That's behind us because guess what? We had a little help from our new friend, Little John.
Yeah, sure you did. Where is he?
Yeah, I actually don't know where he went. He was just over here a second ago. But either way, I'm sure you'll get your chance to meet him. I just don't know where he went.
I bet you I know exactly where he is.
Oh no. Diva Marie.
OMG, I'm so excited to have a new boyfriend who is actually real. Mayor Aaron never brings the men's figures to life here. He's all like, blah, 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 women's wrestling lives here, blah, blah. But what about us girls? I mean, I need a boyfriend, a real one. There was Jungle Boy once, but Mayor Aaron wouldn't bring him to life. So I'm so glad I have you.
Hey, let me tell you something, little lady. These glasses here make me see a lot of things, zombies included. But when I look at you, all that I see...
Beauty? Is that what you see?
Oh no! You see, I was gonna say that I see a stage 5 clinger.
Aww, how sweet.
Hey y'all, welcome to LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. Now today I am super excited for this review because it is super unique. You see, I have never reviewed a women's wrestling figure like this before, and quite frankly, it's because we have never got a women's wrestling figure in Hasbro style. Now, this Bull Nakano figure was released by Chella Toys, but it is in the essence of Hasbro, and I am so freaking excited to review this. This looks super cool. So without further ado, let's take a closer look, starting with that packaging. Alright, so let's start off by taking a look at this awesome packaging. Now, the first thing I am going to say first and foremost is this was shipped by the Asylum Wrestling Store, and they did an excellent job keeping this thing safe and had plenty of bubble wrap in a nice sized box. So yeah, this thing showed up pristine, but we are going to open it up for the sake of the review, and I'm excited for that. Now, I don't need to tell most of y'all that this style carding is directly inspired by the old 90s WWF Hasbro line. Needless to say, to be honest with y'all, I never had those as a kid. I kind of started playing with wrestling toys and collecting during the bone-crunching action days, so this was a little bit before I got into it. But yeah, this is a direct inspiration from those WWF Hasbros. Even so, where this Wrestling Megastars logo looks like the old Shine WWF logo, we have an image of Bull in the front with that signature there. And we have a little cartoon image of her talking about the action that she performs, which is the Poseidon. And then it is hard to see her, I know that. This plastic's very reflective, but like I said, we are going to open it up. But I just wanted to show y'all this and let all of you Hasbro maniacs kind of reminisce, because this is very cool. On the back, we have this little bio card of Bull Nakano that has little lines you can cut out. It has the rest of the line, or the rest of the series there. And then over here, we have the actual action that she performs, so we will definitely be testing that out. So yeah, this is very inspired by the old Hasbro line, and I am going to try to open it up cleanly. I know, I'm sorry, I'm trying here to be very delicate with it, And okay, that's not bad. I mean, I'm definitely going to keep this card because it looks excellent, but I actually think it looks really cool backwards. Either way, that was not very hard to get off, and now let's look at the figure. Wrestling Megastars Series 1 Bull Nakano by Chella Toys. This attire is very similar to the April 3rd, 1995 edition of Monday Night Raw, where Bull would lose her WWF Women's Championship to her rival Alundra Blaze. Fun fact is this match was originally supposed to have been part of WrestleMania 11 the previous night. Now, these two women had a great rivalry, really showcasing what the women could do in the wrestling ring and setting themselves apart as trailblazers for the women. So my first impression of this figure is, wow, I mean, this is so freaking cool. And I'm so glad we finally get a female representation in that Hasbro style body mold. Now, I am a women's wrestling figure collector, supporter, whatever you want to call it. And to finally have a Hasbro style female is truly astonishing. I'm blown away. I'm so happy. And who better than Bull Nakano? I mean, she was a true trailblazer in the 90s. And I remember watching her and Alundra Blaze go at it quite a bit on WWF TV. So I'm happy about that. Now, I did mention before that I don't own any Hasbros. I never did as a kid, but I'm very familiar with them. And I played with them quite a bit when I was a kid when I'd go to the treasurer's house. He had a bunch. And just from that experience alone, I can tell you that this is a little bit different than those Hasbros as far as appearance, feel, and whatnot. Starting off with the scale of Bull Nakano here. So she is 5'7", or listed at 5'7" in real life. But I still feel like her scale is really, really small, okay? I don't have any of the WWE retro figures or the old Hasbro figures to compare, but I feel like if you put this on the shelf next to some of those retros, some of those Hasbros, she's going to look really, really tiny, and she shouldn't. So that's a little bizarre to me. And another thing is it does seem like a different type of plastic used on her compared to those old style Hasbro figures or retros. And this time around, it has more of a matte finish, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but it doesn't have that shiny, plasticky type feel that those figures did. So those are just two things that I noticed. But with that being said, let's take a closer look at this figure, starting with that face. So I absolutely adore this face sculpt. I think it is so cool. Now, it really does fit this style very well. And what I mean by that is those old Hasbro sculpts, none of them were perfect. They were mostly cartoony, but they were a lot of fun. And it was kind of a mix of realistic and cartoony at the same time, if that makes sense. And that's what this is. Like, is it a perfect sculpt? No, it isn't, but it's a lot of fun. You can see that it's Bull Nakano, and I think it matches perfectly with that Hasbro style. And I think that's great. Now, what's really cool is she has some expression, some emotion. She's kind of gritting her teeth there. She also has the very intricate and accurate paint job on the right side of her face. And she also has a little dark makeup around her eyes there. Now, what really stands out is this signature hair that is sticking up in the front. And along the back it hangs down. She has it colored really green on the tips. And then as we go down to the roots, it gets a little darker. Now, I'm thinking that the hair should have been maybe a little taller, but beggars can't be choosers, and I think it does look cool, and it obviously looks like Bull Nakano, so I know the scan's not perfect, but this is a different style figure than I'd ever reviewed on this channel, and I can say for what this is a lot of fun, and I couldn't ask for anything better for this type of figure. So moving on down to her attire, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is very similar to what she wore on that Monday Night Raw when she faced Alundra Blaze and lost her women's championship. It is not identical to that night, but it is very close. Now the overall color theme, as you can see, is black. And it is mostly a matte black that is painted on, as far as her top and bottoms go. Now as far as detailing goes with the molding, she has a little collar that's molded up that goes around her neck. That might mess with articulation. We'll get to that next. And also, there's a little molded ledge here that goes across diagonally in the front. Her sleeves are molded on, and even this little tassel has molding on it. We have a really intricate gold design painted on the front left side of the chest and on the sleeves. Also, there's a little silver detailing painted along the upper parts of her top and on the sleeves. And then moving on down to her bottoms, she has this gold logo on the back and this little molded piece on the side with gold and silver intricate paint. And her boots just have this gold design all over, which looks pretty good. So This attire really isn't too crazy, it doesn't stand out too much, but it is very similar to what she wore all the time, so I think it works just fine. Alright, so let's take a look at her articulation before we cover her action feature. Okay, so with her head, there's really no movement here at all. I mean, there's a joint, but her hair mold and the sculpt of the collar allows no movement, really. Her arms can each move in one direction, and then her waist has a little swivel. There's no articulation in the lower body, and this is really no big deal. That's kind of how these figures are, and that's okay. But let's talk about that action feature that we see advertised on the front of the box and on the back of the box. Now, all we need to do here is lift her arms above her head, and yeah, spoiler alert, there is no action feature. Now, I know anybody that is familiar with these Chella toys that are inspired by the Hasbros would probably know that they don't have action features, but to me, this is really disappointing, and yeah, I'm really let down by it because I was unfamiliar, and I expected it to have an action feature for the cost. Now, I know that's a whole new set of tooling they would have to add, and it would add extra cost to the figure, but this is not a cheap figure. And for what you're getting for, what, $40 really isn't much. And I was really hoping for that action feature, because let's be honest here, those old Hasbros, the action feature really made the figures fun and made them special, and we just don't get that here, so that sucks. I know a lot of people probably already knew that the action features weren't actually action features. It was more like a play of words, because if you look at it on the back, it talks about to have this Poseidon move performed. You hold the figure in position, lift arms above the head, and to activate, you just slam your opponent to the mat. So it doesn't say anything about it being spring-loaded or anything, so to me that's kind of lame and pretty stupid, but that's just me. And here's one last look at Wrestling Megastars Series 1 Bull Nakano by Chella Toys. Alright, so this part of the video, I usually give the figure an overall score. However, this is the first of its kind here in LumberJillville, and I really have nothing to compare it to, so I don't think it's fair to give this figure an overall score. So instead, this section of the video, I'm going to give my thoughts, my opinions, and maybe help you decide one way or another if you think it's worth it or not to get this figure. So I ordered this figure from the Asylum Wrestling store for $24.99 plus $12 shipping, so it came out to be about $36 and some cents. We'll round that up to $40. So for $40, you don't get a whole lot. And remember, this is my opinion, and this is coming from someone that never had Hasbros. I don't collect Hasbros now, and I don't collect WWE retro figures now because I am a women's wrestling figure collector. And before this figure came along, there was no reason to collect that style, right? But if you're a Hasbro collector, if you're a WWE retro collector, I think this is a must-have, and I would spend the $40 to have the very first female representation in your collection. I think that's great. I think that's awesome. If you're a women's wrestling figure collector, it's kind of a toss-up to me. If you have the money to spend and you're willing to spend $40 for this, then I would say absolutely do it. It's the first female figure that's in Hasbro style, and I think that's great. But I can understand if $40 is a little steep for you, honestly. So it's kind of a toss-up here. I mean, you really don't get a whole lot for the money, but for the sentimental fact of it alone, it can be worth it. So just keep that in mind, and hopefully that helped you a little bit on your decision. Whew, I'm going to be honest with y'all. Now, this figure is the first of its kind, like I mentioned before, and it's completely outside my comfort zone. I've been reviewing so many Mattel and Jazzwares women's wrestling figures that I struggled through this review in all actuality, just stumbling over my words and everything. So either way, it was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. But thanks for stopping by LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. For a first look at all future women's wrestling figures, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and join the community. To support LumberJillville, head on over to ProWrestlingTees/LJV and check out the merch. Also check out LumberJillcast, where the Treasure and I talk on a weekly basis every Wednesday morning. Have a great night, y'all.